Have you ever ran a marathon? Well, if you're a Christian, guess what? You're in one. Hebrews chapter 12, starting in verse 1, says this: Therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. I want to point out something very specific, and that's the word weight. So when I was in high school, I was in track, and guess what I ran? The 2 mile. Now, like I said, Christianity is not a sprint. It is not a sprint. If you thought it was, I'm sorry, you got bad information. It's a marathon. I remember when I was in track, I remember the first time I was ever gonna run the 2 mile. I was in the bullpen, which is where all the runners kind of get ready, they stretch, and they get ready to get put on the line. And I remember talking to this guy, it was his first time ever running it too. And he said to me, we were talking about strategy, how you gonna do it, what are you gonna do? You're like, well, Jory, you're just running. I mean, how's their strategy? Believe me, their strategy. And his strategy was wrong. He said, well, I'm just going to take off in a dead sprint so I can get ahead of everyone, get some distance between me and everybody else. Well, that is exactly what he did. About 3 or 4 laps in, we lapped him, and we may have lapped him twice. By the end of it, came in last place, and he was exhausted. It looked like he was dying, because marathons are not dead sprints. It takes time. It takes endurance. Time is the big thing. Sometimes we want things now. We're in a culture that's about now. In Hebrews chapter 12, the writer is telling us that we are to run this race and to cast off every weight and every sin. Now, the funny thing about sin, though, the interesting thing about sin is sometimes we think that's so clear. It's like, sin is this, sin is that. What it says is, they said that ensnares us. Well, what sin will do in your life in this walk with Christ is it won't just slow you down. It's going to stop you. It's going to entrap you. You will become immobile in the call of God on your life. And eventually, if you stay in that place, it'll eventually destroy you. Now, weight's a little different. Now, weight is not necessarily something that's in your life that's sin. Could eventually get there if you don't be obedient to God and walk away from things that God's told you to get out of. But I tell you what, weight, I couldn't imagine running the 2 mile, let alone a marathon, with a huge giant backpack on my back, with carrying boulders or whatever. I even thought about it this morning. It's like, I couldn't even imagine carrying my wallet in my pocket when I ran the 2 mile. That would even be unwise. Even as small as it is, I tell you what, I think about it. I've walked with a wallet in my shorts, just walked with it. And I'm constantly having to pull my shorts up because the wallet's pulling it down, so I'm pulling my pants up, trying to align myself. And that's what I would have been running. I would have focused on that wallet the whole time. Your focus would have been on that weight, and you would have been distracted. Well, what is supposed to be our focus? It tells us in Hebrews chapter 12 that our focus is supposed to be Jesus. We are supposed to set our face to Jesus, set our eyes on Jesus, not just in this moment, but thinking about what he did in his race and how he finished well. We're supposed to finish well. Paul was able to confidently say to Timothy, I have finished my race. I have kept the faith. Faith is a marathon. It's enduring. We receive the promises by patience and long suffering. So we are running this race. Cast off those weights. I don't know what you're going through today, but there might be some things in your life that aren't necessary. Man, if you really have a radical desire to run with God, to run the race that he has called you to, it says here that he has set it. He has set this path before us. It's already set out. But he says, my life, I want to run that race with all that I have. I don't want to have any unnecessary weight on me. No matter how small it is or how insignificant I think it is, I want to be completely free of any burden. If you go on in chapter 12, he goes on to say in verse 12, he says this: Therefore strengthen the hands which hang down and the feeble knees, and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be dislocated, but rather be healed. There's things the enemy, he wants you busy. He wants you so consumed with life that you don't have time for God. You don't have time to run your race. But there's things we need to get out of the path. There's things the enemy puts in our path, but there's also things we put in our own path that are unnecessary. I couldn't imagine running the 2 mile with all this stuff on the track that doesn't need to be there. I think about certain things in the path. I was like, if you were hurt and you were trying to run, but there was all these things that made the path unlevel, but they didn't need to be unlevel. It's like, remove those things. Your legs need to be healed. They need to be restored. And trying to walk on unlevel ground with a foot that's trying to heal, that doesn't speed up the process of healing. So are there things in your life today that you need to let go of? They're not necessarily sin, but they're not helping you run your race. Things that you're doing with your time. Are you watching too much TV? Are you reading too much? Are you spending too much time on social media? It's like, spend some time with God. Spend time in the Word. Run your race. Cast off those weights. I'd love to know if there's some things that, that we don't think about necessarily, but there's something in your life that God's been dealing with and says, hey, you need to cast this weight off. It's slowing you down. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear those stories, and we'd love to run this race with you and understand what you're doing and share those things with you. But we are called to endure and to run this race without sin and without weight. So cast off those weights today. Get out of those unnecessary things. Walk in the Word of God, and you will have victory. You will win today. If this word's been an encouragement to you, if any of these words have been an encouragement to you, I encourage you to click subscribe because there's more coming down the pipe. We usually send these out Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays just to be an encouragement to you guys throughout your week. If you want to get alerts to know that we're posting these things along with lots of other videos that are coming out, click the notification bell. Also, if you think this is going to be a blessing to someone else, click share. Put it on your social media. Let's get the word out there. We believe that this word is powerful, that the Word of God is powerful, and we want to see people win with Christ today. Have you ever walked on water? Check out that devotion.